Hello.
Hey.
We talk about movies in this episode of the G Club.
More than one, even though it just says Baby Driver.
Yeah, and we kind of spoiled some of them, and we just talk about plot details of others. So we're just going to let you know what they are real quick. So obviously Baby Driver, but we talk about when we're going to start spoiling, so it's spoiler-free for the first bit.
It's about 20 minutes in.
Yeah.
We say so, don't worry. The next one is Transformers The Last Night, which is Transformers 5, the one...
The one with... Knights.
And Anthony Hopkins.
Guardians of the Galaxy 2, we spoil some shit about that.
Chad spoils the shit out of that movie.
Yeah, and then we talk about Hot Fuzz, Scott Pilgrim, Ant-Man. Those aren't really spoiler heavy, but we wanted to let you know.
Enjoy?
Yes.
Okay.
The G Club. Oh, the G Club. The G Club. The G Club? The G Club. I'm sorry.
Welcome to the G Club. We're going to be talking about movies today.
A particular
Specifically
movie.
one, but maybe others.
Believe it or not, movies are back in a big way.
Movies are back. Millennials, listen up. Movies. They're talking pictures. We're talking about Baby Driver, the new Edgar Wright film. Starring a bunch of people whose names I don't remember, and Kevin Spacey.
Quick,
what's the name of the main dude?
Guy from Mad Men.
His name is John Hamm.
John Hamm.
The main character's name isn't...
Kevin Spacey.
Baby's actor is some like crazy...
He's not from
What's
a
his
lot
name?
of things.
It's like Ansel.
Yeah, it's like Ansel Groot or some... Like, I don't...
And then Cinderella's playing the love interest. She's Deborah.
Cinderella's
Wait,
fictional
you're
character.
thinking of
The actress who played live action Cinderella is the person.
From
Is the
two-
same
the
actress who
Disney
plays.
Cinderella?
There's a lot of Cinderellas.
No, the newest live action Disney Cinderella.
Okay.
I didn't see it.
The one with Helena Bonham Carter and
Is that
like.
Anne
Is that
Hathaway?
Lily James? Whatever her name is? That sounds like
Yes,
a porn. That might be a porn star, actually.
I think
don't know.
Lily
was
James
not-
might be it.
That was not her, though. I know what
No?
you're talking about. She was in Okia last night, because I remember going like, that's her. Looks a lot like her. She should be getting some of the same roles, though.
Real quick, let's introduce ourselves.
Oh, yeah.
Before we dive straight into it.
Who are you, Barry?
I'm Barry. I'm Razadoop on Twitter, GameGrumps stuff.
Who are you, Chad?
Hi, I'm Chad. I write for cartoons like Troll Hunters and Unikitty, and I'm helping out with Gameaverse.
Nice.
Yeah.
Woo.
Yay.
How about you, Ryan? Who are you?
Wonderful applause there.
I know. I don't deserve
Hope you
this.
feel good.
You're 100% the reason for the future success of Gameaverse.
Oh, it's like
100% of the credit.
I'd say 2% milk tops for me. Mostly Ross just yelling at me.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you. That's very nice of you to say.
Then I'll take the other.
That's how the creative
100.
process
Yeah,
works.
totally.
90,
You just
20%. I'll take most of the credit for
That's fine.
Gameaverse.
Ryan.
And I am Ryan McGee. I have a channel called Super Mega, and I also edit for GameGrumps currently.
Are you going to edit this podcast?
Probably.
Matt has edited the other ones, but
Yeah.
Really?
Because the thing is, he edits the podcast because I take Doodle Dudes.
Okay.
And now I'm going to have to take Doodle Dudes and the podcast.
Matt needs to
and
pick up some slack.
He worked his little butt off. He had the backlog a lot for Super Mega.
Understood.
I don't know. I mean, you're here working right now, and Matt's not. So like,
He is in South Carolina enjoying some good Charleston food.
Sounds
I am
like
jealous of
not
in
him.
work.
the depths of summer. Jesus Christ. He's going to explode.
more characters in Baby Driver. Kevin Spacey.
Come on,
Kevin
come on.
Spacey.
Jamie Foxx.
Jamie Foxx.
There's more.
Flea.
Yes.
Yeah,
Flea.
for a minute.
What a good like bit character actor, by the way, right?
Yeah.
Back to the Future 2. And
Also, I thought it was Simon Pegg, but it wasn't.
who'd you name was Simon Pegg?
The Butcher.
I kind of...
The guy in the white suit.
yeah.
That was, what's his face? He was like a rock star from like the 70s.
Oh, that totally makes sense. There's Edgar Wright. So Edgar Wright always puts in like weird cameos in his movies, right? Like he hides them.
Oh, yeah.
Like Peter Jackson's in Hot Fuzz as like the Santa Claus that stabs.
What?
Yeah.
That Santa Claus that stabs Nicolas Angel is Peter Jackson.
Then who's
Jesus.
the actress from Lord of the Rings that was also like in
Kate
the
Blanchett.
suit?
Oh, yeah.
Kate
yeah.
Blanchett.
You never
So-
see her face.
So he
Yeah.
like, hides them in there uncredited.
Yeah.
So there was none of those in Baby Driver as far as I'm aware.
Well,
of.
there was that. I need to look him up because it's going to drive me nuts.
Yeah.
But, and I can look up the name of the...
I kind of felt like Nick Frost and Simon Pegg wouldn't be in this.
I was surprised.
I-
I
was-
feel like that would have taken too much out. I feel like he wants you to be in it. Type
I
of.
feel like-
That's why he doesn't go out of his way to show off that it's Peter Jackson or anyone.
Sure.
This would have
Yeah.
been super obvious.
Well, that's actually really good because so Baby Driver. Do we even explain what the plot of Baby Driver is? Go look up the trailer. Right?
Well, yeah, it's the baby drives fast. It's like Boss Baby.
it's not
like
a
Boss
little
Baby.
kid. It's
No,
not
it's
like
like
they
literally a baby.
They whipped out that sequel pretty fucking quick, didn't they?
oh,
Ansel Elgort. That's our lead.
I remember him from that cancer movie.
What cancer movie?
The one that Jonathan Green wrote.
He was
is he in that?
He was in the Carrie.
Fault in Our Stars or whatever?
The Fault in the Stars.
Yeah.
He was in the Carrie remake. He's been in
I've seen none of
was
his
in the
things.
the Divergent series, The Fault in Our
yeah.
Stars.
Oh, wow. I just thought this guy was like an unknown. I had no idea. I was like, wow,
I
I mean,
nice find.
he's unknown
He
to
was
you.
great.
Yeah, exactly.
I
So therefore it
really
doesn't matter.
enjoyed him in Baby Driver. I just never. Every time I see his name, it like just something about those letters in that order. I'm just like, Ansel good.
Ansel or Ansel?
Just sounds like a bad guy from Wolfenstein. I don't know. I'm not trusting that name. I don't know. Well, hey, Ryan, I think I should.
It was Lily James.
Was it really?
Told
was
you. I
Lily
told
James.
you.
I'm sorry, I doubted
And you're
you.
talking down to me like I don't know my
she
shit.
really transformed. I didn't believe it.
She had a southern accent and blonde hair, and that was enough.
Wow, good for her. She's
Yeah.
really transforming there.
I wouldn't say it was full blonde. I'd say
John
it was more of a dirty
Bernthal,
blonde.
Eliza Gonzalez, a lot of actors, a lot of great people.
Well, I was going to say, I think Ryan actually think you had a great set up for a thing to talk about in that there wasn't Nick Frost or Simon Pegg or anyone.
Yeah.
This is like a not normal Edgar Wright movie.
It's not a Cornetto trilogy.
Yeah, it's
film.
not. So it's not connected with that. I mean, it still has the Edgar Wright style, but there's also a certain style that the Cornetto trilogy had, which was a lot more
Yeah.
fast paced.
Yeah, so the Cornetto trilogy.
Sorry,
As in with the editing.
Blood and Cornetto trilogy. As I push up my glasses for the podcast.
Thank you. So the style of editing in those, and I think every frame of painting.
The video is so good.
I think he did
Everyone
really,
should have seen that video.
the
by
video
now.
that he did on Edgar Wright and his editing style was fantastic.
Mm-hmm.
But he does very, very quick cuts to like set up a scene. So it'll show like someone tying their shoes and then like they pour a cup of water.
They're
Like,
entertaining
it's, like,
cuts.
super fast.
Yeah.
They're
but it tells a story
yeah.
in like 3 seconds in your gut. He does it in Scott Pilgrim a bit too.
Well, I think
less,
Scott Pilgrim honestly is like his most pizzazzy, like his most kind of.
It's the most rapid fire because it needs to condense 7 books into one movie.
like 3 of which weren't out when he
Yeah,
made the
exactly.
movie.
And he was
It's-
putting a style, I guess, a graphic novel or just more of a style into that one.
I feel like we need to take another step back and just real
Yes.
quick be like, okay, Edgar Wright, very talented director,
So good.
most known for the Blood and Cornetto trilogy of
Yes.
films,
Yes.
which is Shaun of the Dead, Hot Fuzz, and
The World's End.
Yeah.
which I always forget because that came out the same summer as
This is the End. Yeah.
So I
yeah.
always think of like it's one of those end movies.
Yeah.
If Seth Rogen had a cameo in it,
That would have been great. And then he also directed Scott Pilgrim versus the World.
Yes.
And now he's done Baby Driver.
And before that, he did Spaced. Which,
yeah,
with,
I've only
BBC.
seen a couple episodes, but
It's interesting to see, like, oh, this is you figuring this stuff out. Like, it's very much like each episode of a sitcom is like very genre heavy. So there'll be like a zombie episode.
yep. And that was starring
yeah.
Simon Pegg as well.
Yeah, so this is, and a lot of people in his earlier movies, like, oh yeah, this is just you just figuring out how to do it.
Nice.
It's a cool watch.
do we want to say what our favorite of his move? Do we want to
Yes,
say including
sure.
Baby Driver, or not including?
Yeah, including Baby
Okay,
Driver.
including Baby Driver. Who wants to go first? I mean,
Yeah, go first. You brought this idea up.
Don't put this on
Guys,
us. Let's
guys.
all say our deepest, darkest secrets.
Yeah,
You go
okay.
first.
All right, yeah. Dying Alone, go.
Hot Fuzz 100% is my favorite movie
Agreed,
of Edgar
concur.
Wright.
Agreed. Actually,
Yes.
agreed.
Yeah.
Hot-
Okay.
Here's I will say interesting. I used to always say Shaun of the Dead, but like the more I'm never in the mood to watch
I
Shaun of the Dead.
love all of his movies.
Yeah.
Hot Fuzz I could watch at any time
It's
just be like, I'm in.
I always marvel at. Have you guys seen the video of him and Simon Pegg with like the big sheets of paper and they're actually planning out the town and everything around Hot Fuzz?
No.
You could just tell, like, if you look into it and read up on it, there's so much planning that goes
Yeah.
into his movies. And
every
That's
detail's
the thing.
immaculate.
That's
yeah.
what I really, really respect about Edgar Wright, and it definitely comes through in Baby Driver and
Yeah.
Spades, is how much he thinks about every single moment of these movies. He is obsessed with every detail of foreshadowing, of referencing to other shit. Like, everything is thought out. There's nothing that's just like, whatever.
well, especially in this movie because everything has to be in sync.
Right.
With
Oh,
something.
yeah, it's everything's edited to a beat.
As someone who loves editing stuff to sync up with other things, it was like a wet dream watching Baby Driver. But yeah, Hot Fuzz is just so fucking good.
It's so polished. Like,
Yeah.
it's so slick.
It's just every single Chekhov's gun is fired 100 times.
Yep.
He puts 100 guns on a table and lets them sit there, and then they all go firing off by the end, and you're just so satisfied.
But they feel like they're not like self-contained. They actually, as you said, they're set up And
Yeah,
then there's a
everything-
payoff, but
in all
it
of his
feels like
movies.
it's not like shoehorned in where it's like, I don't know, you see a movie and it's like, oh, that's the gun on the wall,
Yeah,
and
yeah,
look,
right.
I have the last bullet.
But that's the thing is,
What will happen in the climax of this movie?
I want to know more about it. Here's a great example. The goose. In
Yes.
Hot Fuzz.
Yes.
So the first time you see the goose, it's just a joke of like, these are really dumb things we have to do as cops in a small
Yeah.
town. That works as a joke by itself.
Right.
Tracking down this goose, and then throughout the episode, throughout the movie, you keep seeing the goose, and then when it pays off at the end, when it bites the bad guy in the face and helps him crash, you're like, it's a payoff, but you didn't need it, but you're happy it's there.
right?
Yeah.
You're glad that it didn't just kind of like disappear into that weird first act thing.
Yeah.
That we never talk about again.
My favorite goose joke in the Hot Fuzz one was. I'm sorry, there's so many ones. My favorite one is when he's going after the shoplifter, and then he sees the goose, and it's like it's edited, so it's like this tough decision. It's like, do I go after the
He's
goose?
in a foot chase.
Yeah,
Right.
do I go
Yeah,
after the infamous goose, or do I go after like the human?
Gotta
running-
go after the goose.
everything about, I guess, the editing within Hot Fuzz, as you said, Shad, it just feels very just planned out and contained.
Yeah.
So
Well,
Also, the
yeah.
really frantic editing style really complements how low energy so much of that movie is.
Oh, yeah.
So it's like, this really fast, high-paced energy, and then they're just like sitting in the middle of the town and nothing's happening. And
Well, let me ask you guys, as two editors, I always think Hot Fuzz is interesting because it's a film where I'm aware of the editing and I love it, but the number one rule of editing is you're not supposed to be aware of editing, right? Like, theoretically, if you do your job right, you're
Right.
not paying attention to like that was a bad cut.
editing is a mostly invisible job, correct? But
what
You might disagree with that statement. I'm just
it can add a lot of style. I mean, just look at also Quentin Tarantino.
Sure.
I mean, the editing in his films, even though he's not using the same editor, I believe for Django he used the editor for like a Fast and Furious.
Oh,
movie.
really? But he's usually has
his
the same
editor
one,
that
yeah.
he used for many, many years died a couple years ago.
Yeah.
Really bringing
Sally,
the podcast
yeah.
down.
Yeah.
Rest
But I
Sally
mean-
something. I'm forgetting her name.
Editing.
Sorry about that. Well, it's like it's not. He didn't just choose. Oh, I'm gonna go with this Fast and Furious guy. It's like, he had to kind of.
Yeah.
He didn't have a lot of options there.
But I'm trying to see where I was headed.
Well, I was just
What
pointing out
was
that like,
your-
normally you always hear that editing's supposed to be unnoticed, but
Yeah.
with
So
Edgar
the
Wright,
thing
I'm like
is,
glad the editing.
Most
so
of the
good.
editing still is. When you're having a conversation and it's shot reverse shot, you're not aware of those cuts. If that is flowing properly, you're just following the conversation. It's when he does those transitions are the most impactful. Like, I'm aware of the editing and this is great because you're just taking in so much information so
Sure.
fast.
You want a bad example I can share, by the way?
Please.
Transformers 5, which is hot garbage.
Is this the
have
last
not seen-
night?
It's the newest, the
with
last
Anthony
night.
Hopkins?
Anthony Hopkins.
Is he
Give
in
a
there?
round of applause for Anthony Hopkins
Academy
for
Award
being in
something.
Westworld Anthony
Transformers.
Hopkins.
I'm so proud of Anthony. I've known him for the longest time.
We call him Ant-Man.
We call him Ant-Man. It's kind of confusing. But
Oh yeah, Edgar Wright was supposed to direct Ant-Man.
I want to talk about that.
Okay.
This is a segue. But I was going to
Nice
say,
segue.
In terms of bad editing, this Transformers 5: The Last Night, starring Marky Mark Wahlberg, who's also spoilers, The Last Night. It goes from
I was Optimus.
I know. You shouldn't it have been.
Shit.
Did Bumblebee die?
Bumblebee gets his voice back, and it sounds bad.
And does he sound like who would he sound like?
It sounds like a no one. You think it should be like someone real?
Okay,
just-
how do we preface this podcast? Okay, people are like, this is gonna be the Baby Driver podcast.
We'll get there.
We're spoiling
Driver.
every we're gonna start spoiling every movie that's out in theaters.
These are the minor details from the last
the
night.
minor details.
All right, last
everything
night,
that happens at the
Hot
end.
Rod, who's also French, has a time gun, and he fires a gun that fires time bubbles, and every time he fires it,
Time bubbles.
no one talks about it. So to make it clear, he goes, "I'm stopping time" every time he fires it, and there's just like spatial time bubbles. Like, that's a whole movie.
Does he stare at the camera while saying that too?
No, but he yells it out loud so everyone understands every time what's going
my
on.
God.
Sorry, all right. So, but in terms of bad editing, that movie, you have to watch it just to see it. It cuts between 3 different aspect ratios between shots. So it'll
Like
be like
the black bars on the top
yes.
and
So
bottom
like,
of the
so
screen.
like a good example of using that right is in The Dark Knight. Nolan would have
Yeah.
like for the big Joker scenes, it would cut to IMAX.
Yes.
And you like get this imposing like something big is happening.
I feel like it's
the whole-
surrounding you.
But in The Last Night, it'll be a thing where Marky Mark is talking to Ant-Man, Anthony Hopkins.
Yeah.
And
I was like, wait,
Anthony Hopkins will be in
I don't remember this in the universe.
Anthony Hopkins will be in IMAX, and then Marky Mark will be in Letterbox, and then the third character will be in a different aspect ratio, and it's cutting between all of them and every line they say, and it's like, how did an editor let this happen? I don't know.
Yeah.
It's probably just a joke. He had to see if he could get that one
It's
pie.
the whole movie I just kept watching the corners of the screen like I go, we're just doing this now. But that's bad editing.
Yeah. Well, okay. So to me, good editing is all about servicing the story.
Yes.
And that can mean really chaotic editing where you can't tell what's happening. Like in a Jason Bourne action scene where you're like, it's all shaking cam, I don't know where anyone is, I can't follow anything.
He's hitting someone with a book.
Right. But like that's
fight.
what that story kind of needs, is that sort of like frantic style to it. So I'm kind of always aware of editing because I've been editing for so long. I'm like always like seeing shit when something's wrong. It just like sends off all these alarm bells in my head. But in the case of like an Edgar Wright film where he's very deliberately using editing in ways that's not really conventionally used, I think even when it's done in that sort of jarring example where like you become aware of it as someone who's not normally aware of editing. I don't think that's a bad thing because it's still servicing the story. It's still getting you information. It's still getting you to the next scene.
It's one of his tools for sure.
He's
I
just,
agree with that,
he's just using every tool he has as a filmmaker to give you this experience.
Well, it gets you inside the character's like kind of world.
Exactly.
Because like you know when he's like
movies aren't reality, and he embraces that.
He uses the sound design perfectly to for Nick Frost's character. He's always having these epic like kind of things, and just the like the sound effects really add to the character's, I guess, state of mind and where they are, and it like really brings everything just out in the forefront.
I think half of like Scott Pilgrim's jokes are someone saying something and then like a cell phone ringer going off as a punchline. Or like little things like that. They wouldn't even. I don't even know if it would read in the script. He has to just be that aware of him.
Right. He knows what it will look like visually.
Yeah. Have you ever read like I think like Tarantino scripts are like that where he knows he's going to shoot it, so he'll just write like badass action scene happens, and I know it. I got this covered.
Right.
I'll be fine.
Well, it's because he's not just some like guy that Warner Brothers or whoever is like, hey, can you write a funny little comic book movie? Make sure to add a pretty lady in it.
Yeah.
I gotta make him fall in love.
But so I think it's significant that the three Blood and Cornetto trilogy films, I just call them the Cornetto movies.
Just Cornetto. Just that's fine.
There's gonna be some angry nerds.
But they're gonna be angry no matter what.
It's also Cornetto ice cream in case anyone's curious. They
Which is that only in the UK? I don't think I've ever seen that in.
There's like we have that here.
It's the three flavors, so yeah.
There's more than 3 flavors of ice cream, Ryan.
No. Well, if you can prove that to me right now.
Chocolate, praline, and swirl, and that's it. That's the only flavors of ice cream.
And swirl is 2 different flavors, but don't think about it.
Think about it. That's the only flavors of ice cream.
But so the Cornetto movies and Scott Pilgrim are all very frantic, high-paced movies that have this sort of like really crazy comic book energy to them. And Baby Driver is very different in that regard. Now let's kind of segue us back to Baby Driver. Baby Driver is more of like a classic movie.
It felt a lot more calm down.
Like it's still crazy in so many exciting, fun ways. But I think compared to Edgar Wright's oeuvre, is that how you pronounce that word?
Good word, yeah.
That's a college word.
Yeah.
I don't even know
there we go.
Yeah, compared to his previous works, it seems much more of like any director could have done this until you watch it for like 5 minutes. You're like, okay, no, they couldn't.
Yeah.
But the way that movie is paced and structured, it feels just like a normal movie that could have come out of the 70s. You know, it's like
It was much more of like a genre. It actually reminded me of a Tarantino movie.
I think it's something you texted me. You're like, Edgar Wright, if Edgar Wright made a Tarantino movie.
Yeah, and this is going to sound like an insult. It felt like it was more of like a mainstream film for him in a weird way. Just like, it just felt like I'm dialing back a little bit. We're not going to have like Zelda sound effects going.
Right.
I wonder how much that had to do with the chemistry that he had with the people on set. Because, of course, he may have had good chemistry with Jamie Foxx and Ansel and all these other people. But the friendship that he actually has with Simon Pegg and the relationship he has with that trio with Simon Pegg and Nick Frost, I'm sure that added a lot to the movie-making experience. And this time it's like him doing his own project. Because he did something like this in a music video.
Yeah, there's a music video he did with like the dudes from the Mighty Boosh, which, by the way, if you guys haven't watched Mighty Boosh, so good.
Yeah, Noel Fielding and Felding or whatever.
Yeah, and I think Nick Frost.
Which apparently that's in for like half a second in Baby Driver.
Yeah,
when he's flipping between channels.
Yeah. Is it really?
Yeah, it's like Noel Fielding in a car for like 3 seconds.
He loves that joke of like a TV edits telling a phrase. Like that's the best part from Hot Fuzz. Where he's like flipping the channels. Like reports are in of people being eaten alive. Like just different channels to say it. Yeah. The music video I think is just that scene from Baby Driver where he's waiting for the bank robbery. Like it's just him. It's Noel Fielding doing. Like the whole, you have 2 minutes and 35 seconds and just kind of dancing and let the car as the song plays.
The idea, I think, came to him in 94 or something.
It's crazy, yeah.
To sit on an idea for that long.
Yeah.
And have it turn out so good.
Well, I don't want to jump to like other topics. I was just I was gonna jump right into the music of the film, but
that makes sense. It's such a
I mean,
crucial part of
are we
the.
right for right now?
I mean, from this point on, do we want to get into the meat of the movie?
Should we also just say I don't know? We want everyone to go see Baby Driver.
Right.
Do we want to like say we might spoil parts of the plot?
I think we probably will.
We've already
it.
spoiled other movies.
Yeah.
But if you haven't seen Baby Driver, go see it and don't listen to the rest of this until you see it.
Put a pause. Run straight to the theater.
It's not a spoilable movie. It's not like, oh, there was this crazy plot twist. But so much of that movie is like the experience of watching it and just having these moments of delight when you're like, oh, there's that thing and oh, this thing's happening.
Well, yeah, it's a heist movie, and you know every good heist movie stuff goes wrong.
Right.
So that's not a spoiler. It's more like how is it going to go wrong?
Exactly.
Yeah.
You're watching a car chase. It's like like there's building blocks there.
Exactly.
But yeah, the music is like 90% of this movie.
More
Which
than
is
even
just like, it's insane how good the soundtrack is and how eclectic it. That's what felt like Tarantino to me. Is he'll find these like obscure like B-side singles from the 60s and he's like, okay, we're gonna do a whole sequence around this song.
I think that other than Lionel Richie's Easy Like Sunday Morning song, that was the only like top 40 track he used. Everything else felt kind of like a nice deep cut.
He used Golden Earring.
Tequila
he does
was another one.
That's right.
He used Golden Earring, Radar Love, which was big.
True.
There were definitely some big hits in that soundtrack.
But it did feel more like these are some personal favorites of mine.
Yes.
Yeah. But the best one I thought
like a Queen song that like no one lists in their top 10 Queen songs, which was the finale of the film. You're like, oh, it's so good. So good. And then they set that up. Like when he's listening to that on his iPod, he's like, oh, this is like your go-to song. It's like they are playing this song as part of the Chekhov's gun for this.
Oh yeah,
I don't know if Chekhov's gun is the right term for.
No,
I'm just using it for everything.
It's a setup and a knockdown.
It's a setup. It's like it's not enough to just say, oh yeah, Brighton Rock by Queen. It's like we're gonna play it for you and just embed that in your subconscious. So when it comes back later, you're fucking ready for it.
Well, you know, I think it's interesting. I don't know if you guys saw Guardians of the Galaxy 2.
Yes.
I definitely had a great time with it. But both of these films do the music of the movie is like tied into the plot.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Like in Guardians of the Galaxy 2, a couple different songs are like related to the characters. Actually mean
a lot more
ham
ham-fisted in Guardians of the
Guardians
Galaxy
2 is a lot more like I listened to a tape player, my mom gave it to me.
And there's no setup for any individual songs.
No,
it
yeah.
just sort of happens.
They're more like they fit the mood. This is like this.
But the
song
music
is
does
for the
play
genre.
definitely a big part in both of the films.
It's interesting to see them using these are rock songs that tie to it, and then seeing all these other movies that try to do that and it fails completely, like Suicide Squad.
Right.
Like every
That's just a
3 minutes.
marketing team trying to.
Well, Trailer
do their
Company
best.
also edited that movie again, right? Like,
Yeah.
apparently.
There are
But
like 5 different edits of that
Can
movie.
we put
Yeah.
5 different songs in the first 5 minutes of the film, please?
and it's also like Led Zeppelin and like Creedence Clearwater and all this, but it has nothing tied to the plot. So even though those are great songs, it's just kind of like I'm just watching an ad,
Yep.
or whatever it is.
Which is unfortunate because like I love that Edgar Wright got everything out of a song that you could in
Yes.
the soundtrack of a movie. I mean, this is like the highest you can go with incorporating a soundtrack into your film.
Yes. In fact, there was the opening sequence of the movie where he's getting the coffee.
That's my favorite song used in the
Which-
movie and my favorite sequence.
And it was like that scene. I was like, okay, I love this movie. And it's like 5 minutes into the movie, and it's just like he's walking around, he's dancing.
I meant the opening scene.
Oh, the very opening with Bell Bottoms.
Bell Bottoms,
So fucking good. No, I'm talking about after that. When he's getting the coffee, he's walking around, he's dancing, and all the lyrics are just in the world around
like
him.
graffitied on and shit.
Wait, I didn't even notice that.
Yeah, they're
Oh, yeah.
graffitied in on stickers and stuff.
The lyrics go like,
Right,
yeah, and it's like graffiti on the wall behind him that goes like, yeah. And sometimes it's kind of blurry, out of focus. I noticed like
That's
halfway
great.
through the song, and I was like, oh my God, it's everywhere. Everything around him, and like he'll walk by a sign, and the sign has some lyrics on it, and it's like synced up with that part of the song as he's walking by.
He'll walk by the instrument store, and
Yep.
then he'll start playing the exact instrument that's like
It's
being on display.
so
So
fucking
he
good.
integrated because he did it in Scott Pilgrim a lot. It would just be the lyrics would actually just appear. They would like
Yes.
float like text.
This
So it
was
was
more
like
in
a
the
subtle
background.
version of
yeah,
Yeah.
That's really cool. I didn't even notice that.
It's like worth seeing the movie again. Just, I mean, at
I'm
some
already
point,
going to.
yeah, at some point that scene will be on YouTube, and you just watch it over and over and be like, oh, it's so fucking smart. But I love that it's not in your face. Like, you didn't notice that. I was like, I bet a lot of people in this theater, it was a packed theater when I saw it. I was like, I bet like half the people here haven't noticed this shit. I didn't notice it till halfway through the song.
Well, that's the nature of all of his movies, right? Like, I think the 5th time I watched Hot Fuzz, it's like a dumb joke it won't even play unless you've seen the scene where Timothy Dalton, who like plays one of the bad guys of the movie, like smiles like a fuck you smile at Nicholas Angel, and then there's the like employee of the month photo perfectly
Yeah.
framed
Yes.
right behind him, and like they don't call it out, but if you notice that later, you're like, oh God, every single shot is just
Which is identical to a bit from Airplane.
Oh, you're
where it's
right,
a little
yeah.
more ham-fisted, where he just is like hands on the table, really mad, and just sort of pans back, and he's the
true.
exact same shot.
That's true.
On the wall.
But that kind of level of care is so awesome.
But yeah, like it works as a visual joke and a homage to this other movie. It's just like all these fucking layers. Oh, Edgar. I met Edgar very briefly.
Really?
Did you get to shake his hand?
I did get to shake his hand. I went to
Fuck
a
you,
screening
Barry.
of Scott Pilgrim, and afterwards he like said a few things.
Was this during Comic-Con? Because there was a bunch of
No,
screens
this
during
was
that.
at like a rooftop of a hotel in Hollywood. It was like a weird
Hollywood Barry.
Yeah, Hollywood. It was like a friend of a friend was like, "Hey, you want to see Scott Pilgrim?" I'm like, "I've already seen it, but I'll see it again." And then Edgar Wright was there at the end. We're like, "Oh shit!" And I just sort of like pushed my way through the crowd and awkwardly stuck out my hand. I was like, I want to say,
need to touch
like
the
the whole
power.
time we're shaking hands. I'm like, I want to thank you for movies. Thank you. He's like, okay, I gotta go.
Please get this strange man
And
away
I have a
from me.
photo of like the back of my head and Edgar clearly not wanting to
being
be
escorted
there.
away.
Is that
Yeah.
framed in your
It
like
should
house
be.
somewhere?
I should frame it.
The back of your head with Edgar Wright.
Yeah, it's like a blurry, shitty photo for a blurry, shitty moment. So it's kind of fitting.
I have a small theory, by the way, that Scott Pilgrim didn't do as well because he had so many free screenings of it. I encountered like 10 free
That's
screenings
a good
of
point.
Scott Pilgrim. Like Comic-Con, I remember they had the panel for it that year, and they had it in Hall H, and there's this thing where it's like, now after the panel, half of us are going to go see it right now. And they had,
Yeah,
like, all of those
which is
people
like
out.
half of your audience.
Yeah, there was like 3 other screens at Comic-Con that weekend in LA. There was all these free ones. I think they just let everyone see it for free.
I think I saw that movie 3 times in theaters,
Yeah.
which is insane for me because I only see movies once, if ever, in theaters. And I think 2 of those were free. So
You're a thrifty man.
I'm a thrifty man, and I like me some good movies.
I saw Baby Driver twice.
Yeah.
It was a good experience.
What'd you think of the southern accents in that film?
What I think of the
That took
Southern-
place in Georgia, right? It was Atlanta.
Yeah.
I guess it was, yeah. Other than the love interest having a southern accent, though, does anyone have a southern accent?
A baby.
Oh, baby, does he?
has a
He doesn't
slight.
say
He has
much.
like a slight drawl
or
to
something.
him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I also love the we got the perfect amount of backstory for Baby, which is like, here's his childhood, here's why he listens to music, go.
Yeah.
Just like, you're good. Like, they didn't even explain why he was so good at driving. They're just like, oh, from day one, he was just a really good driver. And that's it.
People like that I know and like that I've seen had problems with like the simplicity of that, but I was like,
So,
I had
here's-
no qualms with that
Yeah,
whatsoever.
I feel like the biggest criticism I could have of the movie is that the overall plot is very, very simple.
Yeah.
And I think in any other circumstance, I'd be like, yeah, like I wanted more depth to this, or I wanted more going on here. But to me, it's the way the story was told was that journey.
Yeah.
And that's enough for me. I don't need to have. I'm also not really a story guy, so it doesn't really bother me as much for a movie to have an okay plot.
It was also set up for them to have so many characters, because each character in that heist pretty much has like a little bit of an arc. Like
Exactly. You have all these tiny little stories happening everywhere, and you learn all these little bits and pieces, especially with the other people working on the heists. Like, there's that element of, is this their real backstory? Is it not?
Yeah.
You only, when you have Kevin Spacey being like, oh, his name is like Leon, it's like, okay, that's real.
I mean,
Yeah.
But the rest is...
I hadn't thought about it until now. It's kind of interesting. Every heist movie has the scene, and they kind of play with them a little bit, where it's like, all right, like every Ocean's 11 has the like, here's the complicated montage. We're gonna see you break in, knock out the guards. Baby never hears, like he hears it, but it doesn't
he
concern.
just
We
sees
don't
the
hear it.
aftermath and sees what's
Yeah.
going on through like a window or
Because
something.
he's just waiting as the driver. We just see him like walking with guns, and they run back out. We never know what they're really doing. He'll maybe say like, you're gonna steal some bail bonds or whatever.
Yeah, we never really learn anything about Doc.
Yeah.
We just sort of know that, you know, he...
I love that he had a
lots of-
kid.
What was it?
Oh, it's Doc's Kevin Spacey's character, right?
Yeah.
He has like a kid that just like he takes care
It
of.
was
her
his
once in a while?
nephew.
Yeah, his nephew.
That entire
Yeah.
scene was great.
Yeah.
Really enjoyed kid playing on like a Vita or whatever that was.
Yeah. Probably is that movie made by Sony? It's probably made by Sony, right?
I think it was. I think it was actually.
Oh, 100%.
Yeah.
But you were saying what you thought the weakest point of the movie
Yeah,
was.
it's like I don't expect great storytelling from a heist movie.
Yeah.
I want to see the heist. I want to see what goes wrong. I want to see the interpersonal drama, and it just delivered on all those things. So I can't really fault it for that.
Yeah.
Besides just my own personal pet peeves of like, for once in a goddamn movie, I want the love interest to go, wait, you're a psychopath.
Yeah,
Please
yeah.
get away from me.
Oh, that's not gonna happen in
It
this
needs
movie.
to. It drives me up the wall when it's like, oh, I met this lovely
Well,
girl in
that's-
a diner and she fell in love with me instantly because we had 2 dates, and now I show up and shoot a man, and she says, oh, I will run to the ends of the earth with you.
That's my biggest problem with the movie is the
motivation,
characterization and just
She's
the,
very,
I
very
thought,
tropey.
I thought I did not get the chemistry between Deborah and Baby. I for me didn't work at all. Like I watched the scenes a second time because I was like, okay, maybe I need to get
it
know,
just
it
seemed-
over like a song, right? That was
Yeah.
kind of it.
and maybe it wasn't the events, but I guess also, I mean, the acting was fine. There was just something about Baby and Deborah's chemistry that just didn't sell it for me. They didn't actually get to know each other.
Right.
There, as you said, as you just perfectly explained, hey, I know a song with Deborah in it.
All right, I will drop everything that I
mean,
have.
that's
Let's
not your job,
commit
doesn't
Grand
seem
Theft
that
Auto.
great.
No, but he's like a murderer, and he's
No, I
in all
agree.
this bad shit, and
Well, this is the downside of it, right? Is like Deborah works as a plot point more than anything. She's
Yes.
almost like the MacGuffin. Like I got to get out of here so I can. be
except
with
he
Deborah.
had
not
a
a-
MacGuffin.
she's
he
not a
had,
character.
I don't remember his name, but like his caretaker, the deaf guy.
Sure.
And that could have been, I mean, it was his like, oh, I can't let him get hurt. And he kept saying to him, like, I failed you and all this
Yeah,
stuff. And
yeah,
like,
yeah.
that stuff worked for me. That felt genuine. The love interest stuff fell flat for me.
No, I agree. I would say, strength and weakness is like she's just the end goal. I gotta get out of here and drop my old deaf man off at a home.
And that whole scene was great.
That was pretty great. But like
Yeah.
she just equals freedom, right?
Just like, what is her character though? Explain like what's the best you could do with like who is Deborah? What is her character in the movie?
Maybe Edgar just really wanted those like black and white shots where she's standing in front of the Cadillac or whatever, and he's just like, I want that in the movie, and they're like, well, who's the girl? And he's like, it was some girl. Like, it just feels very half-baked, especially for him.
I'm not excusing this, by the way. I just kind of took it as like I'm playing up this old 70s trope of a movie type of like she
Yeah.
just represents this like floating angel out there. I'll get to that, and I don't think that's great. I just think that's how he handled
And
it.
I would have bought that, and I think it works with the movies earlier, like the movies that you're talking about, that they actually do that. But with this movie, it just there's so many legitimately interesting people within the movie, and to have the main person who's driving his emotions, which means it's supposed to be driving you.
No pun intended, right?
Yeah. I
Hey-o.
Yeah.
But like, and if it's not selling, it's not really giving you much to want to kind of like go baby,
Right,
go
you're
run
like,
away
he
with
has
her.
to succeed. He has to get to
Yeah.
Deborah. It's like, he'll
like,
get her
oh.
there, or maybe he won't. I don't
Like in
know.
my head, I'm like, Deborah could die, and that could be a big loss. And like the end goal isn't going
I felt
with Deborah
more
for
upset
me.
for John Hamm when Darling died.
Oh my
Yeah.
god, John Hamm is probably
So good in that.
my favorite performance in the film.
Yeah.
100%.
Bar none.
Well, I will just add, because you're asking how could you do Deborah better. I would have loved. I do like that she was like down, right? It was kind of just made it fun to.
Yeah.
I would have liked. This is just me spitballing. You do something like, he comes clean to her, like, when they have to come back in the diner with the rest of the heist, and he has to kind of explain, like, I help steal and people die because of me. I always wanted to be like, I do like steal from this company. Like, I always wanted to be like, I take money from the till.
Yeah,
Right.
just like a
something to
minor
be like,
character flaw to give her
Yeah.
something other than positivity.
I can justify your thieving because I also thieve on or something like. There's, they're more
Yeah.
than closer than they realize, or something like that. Just
I almost wonder if there's something like that was just deleted for time or
Sure.
pacing, because you're right, she was too perfect. And also there's a
maybe
little bit of that like Oedipus complex going on there, where in the first scene in the diner, the other waitress is like, he's been coming here. Maybe I think his mom used to work here. She's singing a song like his mom used to sing, and so
this movie does a few things where, and I loved and also was confused by it, where like the plot, you think it's gonna go a certain way. Like if you had asked me halfway through the movie, I'd paused it and been like, what's going to be the end game? It's going to be Kevin Spacey as the main guy running the whole thing is going to take Deborah away.
Right.
And he's going to have to like drive to her and get her out.
Yep.
But like it goes in such a weird ways where like, oh no, Kevin Spacey's actually on your side, kind of like he turns a leaf, and
it just
John-
sort of does a little pivot.
yeah,
right
like
there.
it kept doing little pivots like that where I feel like the best version of Deborah is you think you're going to have this long thing of Baby having to convince Deborah to like, don't worry about it, I'm not a bad guy. And like her being on board is supposed to be a pivot, but at the expense of her character.
Yeah.
It's supposed to be almost like a we don't want to see that.
It makes it too easy for things to kind of progress, and and sometimes that's not a bad thing, but it was in the unbelievable way of that, like it happened. Like all of a sudden because we know nothing really about her, and all we can tell is like, okay, she's okay with him shooting a person in a bar. Okay, she's okay with helping him commit Grand Theft Auto.
Right.
She's okay with dropping her entire life and running away with him.
Yeah, she's okay with waiting 5 years.
Yeah. Well, what do you guys think of that whole ending?
The ending?
Yeah, with the...
It's definitely meant to be ambiguous.
So
to have you go,
Yeah.
it could have been this or this.
Or like maybe it was a dream.
Yeah.
Oh, really? You guys? I took that as so. The just explains the part of where they are on the run, and then the cops do have them cornered, and Baby goes to prison for 5 years.
Yes.
And everyone he's interacting in the movie is like, he stole my car, but he gave me my purse.
I really like that kind of,
those payoffs.
Yeah, all those. It's like, oh, he said like, I'm sorry, ma'am. It's just oh, like that came back. Like I didn't expect that. Kind of like what you were saying earlier. Like I didn't expect the goose to come back.
Yeah.
I didn't expect the one with the purse to actually kind of be important in even a small sense later on.
Even though he did hold a gun to her head.
He did. He did hold a gun
It was
to her head.
waving in the general direction.
He could have sneezed and her brains would have been all over
right.
over the backseat of her car. But
you took that as I took that as like, okay, our character, if he gets away with Deborah, is kind of a false thing because he has committed a sin, so to speak.
Yeah,
Yeah.
So
he needs to
I
come
took it
clean
as
away.
because the ending it sort of is that same sort of dream sequence thing of her with the car, but then it goes into color. So you're like, okay, I guess it's real, even though there's a super saturated rainbow behind him.
Yeah.
Which I think was a callback to a song earlier in the movie that's something about rainbows.
That sounds right.
Because like every song tied in all kinds of shit. But yeah, I thought it was a really strange because any other genre movie like that would just end with them driving off into the sunset, and this one was like, nope, he went to jail.
And they also gave him.
But they still give him a happy ending.
that's how it started to end at
Yeah.
first.
Yeah.
I actually thought they were gonna do the bummer ending of like he's just in prison and he writes to her and you never see him get out because the director would be like, no, we gotta end on a he's learned his lesson and he's gonna maybe he'll get off in 3 years, but then we just time jump to 5 years later and he's out.
Right.
So the
And
prison
they haven't
doesn't-
aged at all. It's fine. Don't worry
Yeah,
about
so the
it.
prison doesn't really matter, but it just for the character's like conscious to be.
I think it's
clean?
just Edgar Wright being like, yeah, he didn't get away.
Yeah.
I think that's it.
They must have had a line probably somewhere in that movie where it's like you can't run forever. It must have been something like that to set that up.
Wait.
was
It was in the
character-
beginning. It was in the beginning. Remember, he's like, someday this is gonna catch up with you. He played Shane in The Walking Dead. What's his name? John Bernthal.
Oh, yeah.
Played
Punisher guy, right?
Yeah, he played the henchman in the beginning. That's like, if you never see me again, I'm dead. And we never saw him again. So I'm like wondering if I asked Edgar Wright, hey, is this character dead in the universe?
100% yes.
Yeah. I love that he actually puts that much work to where
Right.
you can assume, that character's dead because that's
like-
just his style.
It's his kind of consistent internal movie logic.
Yeah.
It's like, this is the world that we're in.
Can I share one of my favorite things with Edgar Wright that I think is kind of related to this because it might be the same thing? I remember hearing from actors on the set of Scott Pilgrim that Edgar Wright gave each of the actors an envelope with a secret about their character that only they're allowed to know. So Aubrey Plaza, who plays a minor character as like one of Ramona's like friends.
Yeah, she works at the coffee shop.
She works at the coffee shop.
Yeah.
Like he gave her a letter that's like, don't tell anyone this. This is just for you to know as a character. And it was like, you're secretly in love with Scott Pilgrim. Like little things to motivate all of their characters.
Yeah.
to give him little ticks.
Yeah, just the little things and like.
Makes it
I'm
more
sure that
believable.
happened for everyone in this Baby Driver movie.
Oh, 100%.
Like, these are your character motivations, even if we don't say it.
Right, because you do get a sense that there's a lot of history in this world. It doesn't just feel like, oh, we're in a movie and nice to meet you. It's like there's history between a lot of these characters. It's a nice plot device that he never does the same heist with the same crew, because then you constantly have these new people coming in and being like, oh, I'm this person. Like, have you worked with this guy? Oh, man, this baby, he's a crazy driver.
It was a nice payoff that like the first heist, I think it was John Hamm and
It was Flea and Jason
Barenthal. Yeah. But like, I like that
John
there was
Bernthal.
Yeah,
John
I
Bernthal.
like that there was a payoff though that like John Hamm and I'm forgetting his
Jamie Foxx?
No, his wife, girlfriend's name.
Oh, Darling.
Darling, like they're kind of unhinged, and you see in the other heist that Jamie Foxx is unhinged. So as soon as they're together, you already have this like dread of like this is not a good crew. Like,
Right, and there was the
just tell.
I don't know the actor's name, but it was the guy who puts the Asian in Home Invasion.
Oh yeah,
It's a great line.
I love that. I love that character.
He was a great character.
He was just the way he talked and the way he like gave looks.
And the thing is, like, you get this sense that like they know who their characters are.
Yeah.
We know enough to get the plot moving. We don't have to spend like, yeah, man, I grew up on the streets and it was rough and this is my motivation. It's like you're in.
Can I use this to pivot off of a similar idea? Because going along with that every frame of painting video, which it uses Edgar Wright's strength in visual storytelling to compare it to all the other recent like comedies, even though this isn't really a comedy.
Right.
But within the
well,
same...
it's like an action comedy.
It's the most
sort of.
actiony out of everything he's done.
Yeah.
But to the same weekend, I saw like The House, that Amy Poehler...
Oh, is it like A
Will
shot,
Ferrell.
B shot, wide shot type
it's
of
all
thing?
exactly what he talks about in that video, and I've already just been so burnt out on it, but it's like improv heavy, like characters just kind of yelling about things. You can tell they're clearly like just throwing stuff out there. We'll just see what sticks on the screen.
Sometimes that can work.
So Judd Apatow's made that work for
Yeah.
like 4 or 5 movies.
He's made a career out of it.
Made a career out of it.
Yeah.
And you can see in the outtakes of those movies, like you'll see Judd Apatow like say something about your
penis.
Say something about your penis. Say about your penis, and here's a joke, and they'll try it and they'll laugh and they'll put it in the edit. Like, but I think comparing Edgar Wright's where everything's meticulously planned to all these other movies where. I guess we'll just figure it out as we shoot it. Like, I don't know. We'll be good. We'll get some good comedic actors.
Shotgun
and,
filmmaking.
It's like Edgar Wright has to know in advance what that movie looks like. I mean, that's how those visual jokes work. Is like, you know the pacing of that scene, you know where the camera is in every single shot. Like, he plans that shit out and it fucking works.
Yeah.
So then you have like 1,000 little payoffs everywhere. Every moment you're getting it. Every frame of painting, every moment a payoff. That's my pivot on that.
Well, specifically with Baby Driver, it all has to be directed to a T, because if it's not, then it's out of sync, and then you don't have what Baby Driver is, which is kind of I've seen people describe it as a musical of sorts.
Right.
Yeah, yeah.
Which it very much is.
I don't know if there's ever a moment where the music stops, except for that great moment of like when John Hamm's character like shoots out by his ears and he goes deaf for a second. You feel it, or like when the music stops in his iPod, you feel every moment the music's not playing.
Yeah, I think there are a couple scenes where there's either no music or just like normal bed music.
Yeah, yeah.
Not like soundtrack music. But whenever there is an absence, you feel it. It's like when he's trying to leave late at night to escape and they like show up and like stop him. Like, I don't
Sure,
think there's
totally.
music in that scene, which just puts you on edge with him.
Yeah, exactly.
That scene made me like. It took me aback more than it did the second time, because the first time I saw him, he's like, I'm going to take something away from you. And everybody's thinking he's going to shoot Deborah, probably.
Oh, yeah.
But when then he shoots on the side of his ear, I'm like, oh no, he just made him fucking dead.
I definitely thought he was gonna be deaf for the rest of his life.
and I was
Yeah,
like, holy
I thought that was where they
fuck.
were going to go with that.
But then, I mean, his ears were still like
were
ringing
still
hard.
fucked
They were
up,
still
yeah.
muffled pretty
Yeah.
badly.
But he could hear.
Yeah.
But yeah, he touched
Did it make
the
his hearing
speaker.
worse, you think?
Yeah, I think
Because he touched, at the end,
He touches
I saw
the
that.
speaker. Yeah.
I would guess there's a draft where like he just lost his hearing, and then like
Yeah.
Deborah, he like likes the feeling of
'cause
her
then
voice.
The worst thing
Yeah.
is like he loses his hearing and then he loses his feet, so he can't drive anymore.
he like slowly cuts off his feet.
Right.
Hold on,
He's
it's
like,
gonna
you
take,
can't
2
hear
hours.
and you can't drive.
Because I love the fact that he goes down to touch the stereo, because that's
Yeah.
exactly what the guy he was looking after.
Right. It's like
Well, he was- as you said, little thing.
dad.
Yeah, as you said, little things that are put in place that get
I
brought
really
up
liked
again.
his foster dad.
Great character.
I love
Yeah.
the actor who played him, and the way he played him was.
I really liked
it. Was
like,
it was goofy, but like that good goofy.
but like he touches the speaker and he's like, "Who's the girl?" You know, like that kind of shit. We're like, "Oh yeah."
He can tell it's a love song.
Yeah. And I love the when he's watching TV at like the very fucking beginning and like Monsters Inc. is on.
Oh,
and
yeah.
That has payoff later. It's just like it's I don't know. I just whenever I watch a movie like that or like a Tarantino movie, it feels like you're in good hands. It's this like you're being cradled by
Oh,
the
yeah.
director,
Well,
and it's
you
like,
feel-
don't worry, like this will all make sense, and you're gonna have this little story told to
You
you.
feel someone cared about it enough
Right.
to like really put.
This
a lot of
wasn't
time
some
in it.
like corporate machine like we need to make an emoji movie because we bought the rights. Why did we buy the rights? Because they were on sale.
It was also it was actually apparently maybe this is inside.
Insider info?
I told my executive when we were me and Ryan Parner were trying to pitch there at one point. Like I think it was like sold in the room. I think a guy came in as like emoji movie, and they're like, it's the world inside your phone, and they bought it then and there.
Right.
It's not even like we just happen to have the license. Like I just had this idea, and they're like, we get it. Let's do it.
All right,
Can we get TJ
let's
Miller?
buy the
TJ
rights.
Miller's always available. Let's do it.
Got him on speed dial.
We got him on speed dial.
Yeah.
Did you see him in Deadpool? Hilarious.
But it's like, like the story that Edgar Wright had this idea, 25 years ago or whatever. I feel like this was a situation where, Ant-Man fell through or whatever that story was.
You
which
can
we
tell
talk about
some of
that.
the. You can tell some of the stuff in Ant-Man
We
that
can
he
talk
had
about
a
that in a
part
second.
of.
I do want to talk about that. Yeah.
Oh man!
But just like that fell through, and then like he had an opportunity to like pitch an idea, and he was like, "This is what I want to make," and they let him make it, and it was like a $35 million budget, which probably went all to the cast. You know, like all of the race scenes, all the heist scenes, those were all practical effects. There weren't CG cars.
So nice it was practical.
It was real cars, and you felt it, and it was shot to give you that sense that they were real cars.
Because the characters actually move with the way, like, with the momentum that the car chases are going in, unlike other movies.
There was obviously CG used in certain.
Well, to touch it up, but it wasn't like a big. It wasn't like a big CG car bursting through a building, or 100 bursting through a bunch of windows. Fast and Furious. The most recent
I do
one.
think Baby should join the crew of Fast and Furious 9. Like
they're the same universe.
They need like a new Paul Walker, and Clint Eastwood's son's not going to do it. So they need I think Baby joins the crew.
You know, Edgar Wright's directing the next one.
You're joking right now.
I'm kidding.
You
just went dead.
I had a lot. I have a lot of love for Fast and Furious. So I actually would. They need a shot in the arm. That'd be great.
Well, and like also, I mean, kind of speaking of Fast and Furious, and like literally everything that Hollywood is making right now, it's just really good to see a good movie that just feels good, and it's not part of a 500 movie series.
Oh, it's not some of a dark universe.
It's not adaptation of a book or a graphic novel or a comic book. It's just an original story that was clearly meant to be a movie, and it does its job well. And it's like, I'm done. I'm out.
Apparently, he's
just feels
thinking
really
of a sequel.
good.
He's thinking of a sequel.
I hope not.
I'm okay with that, but I'd prefer not. I prefer that just this is it.
Yeah.
It sounds really selfish because like he can do what he wants, but like for me, I want him just to continue to make mini masterpieces that stand on their own type of thing, because it all
I believe
gels.
I think the problem when you do a story like Baby Driver where a character reaches its conclusion, like you're gonna have to fall into the same tropes of like, there's one more heist, baby. Like,
this is the last one.
Yeah,
isn't that the quote in every Fast and Furious trailer after like the second one?
Pretty much.
Like, this is after this, I'm out.
Right.
I thought you were out. Well, we got one last job.
Really,
even when characters is still in the heist, they CG at him.
One last job.
Do you want to talk about Ant-Man?
I do want to talk about Ant-Man because that was the whole time I watched it. It was almost bittersweet to watch Baby Driver go.
Speaking of heist movies,
Ant-Man is a heist movie essentially.
Yeah,
it is.
Yeah, it is. You're right. Yeah.
And like there's
like
things,
a Mission Impossible fucking like wire drop and everything.
And to Edgar Wright's credit, I read a lot of like interviews in the last couple of weeks where every interviewer wants to go. So like you're doing a heist movie now. Your other heist movie you stepped away from Ant-Man. If everyone doesn't know the history, he was doing Ant-Man for like 8 to 10 years. Like before Iron Man was a thing, he was working on Ant-Man.
Yeah.
It was always like a passion project, and it just kept working on it. Marvel made the empire it has now in film, and he like stepped away from Ant-Man with like a year left. Like a year before, like they were shooting it, I think, or about to shoot it.
Yeah, I don't think he ever shot. I mean, besides like early tests.
He definitely like cast Paul Rudd. I know that
so.
he had cast Paul Rudd because he remembers.
And he was billed as like lead writer on it or something.
He still has story credit. Yeah, I saw an interview where he like said that him and the new director Peyton Reed or whatever was like. They were fine and amicable, but all he said was like, "Hey, just please don't use my storyboards." So he'd had it boarded out. Like he had a movie to be made.
There were so many moments when I was watching Ant-Man where I was like, if Edgar Wright had his hands on this joke would land.
Yes.
Over and over and over. It was just like, this is something that he, like kind of like you were talking about earlier, where like the Tarantino's like, I'm just going to write an action scene. Like, done. Like he knows in his head how that beat works. And so when it's written out, it's just like, oh, like it zooms in. It's like, so in someone else's hands, it just sort of does a thing. And it's like, that could have been a joke with the right editing.
Yeah, there were
so many moments in Ant-Man that could have been funny, but were just sort of played as like, oh, that's just how it goes.
I would love to compare scripts. There's a few things in Ant-Man that like I could be randomly guessing. I feel like the jokes of Michael Peña's character, like doing kind of hypercuts to like a bunch of series of stories that evolve and new places.
That felt very Edgar Wright.
I think like there's an ongoing joke where like Michael Peña's character like knows something through a series of stories, and it'll be like, so I'm at like a wine.
I saw this hot chick, right?
And she told me this, and cuts to this, and cuts to this, cuts to this.
Which with that Cornetto style
that
fast
feels
editing.
like Edgar Wright.
Yeah.
Them falling through the air in a suitcase while the Pixies song goes on or whatever. Like, that feels like an Edgar Wright joke.
I remember specifically there were 2 moments in that movie where I was like, this would have been hysterical instead of like, okay. It was when they were watching the Cold War era footage of the original Ant-Man, and he's like ping-ponging around and like zooms in really fast, and you get this still of like the tiny little guy like, haha, here I go. Like, that could have been hilarious with just a little bit of better pacing to that joke. Instead of just being like, oh man, they're all falling down, that's crazy. Oh, it was a tiny guy. Like, that would have been very, very funny if it was just like a little bit snappier of just this like, bam, like you're like, oh fuck, it was a tiny dude the whole time. That, and then also it was after the briefcase thing where they're falling out of the helicopter. And then they land in the pool, and it's like a wide shot where you just hear these tiny little bloop. It's just like they're like tiny little like.
It's the whole movie's joke is something big and grand, and then cutting down.
And then it was a really tiny thing.
Scale,
and it's like it's like half those jokes hit for me, and the other half were like, I get it, they're small.
I would love to see.
I feel like his version
of
of that would have been constantly making fun of this fact and like always having fun.
But
with
it not getting old.
Right, because he knows he's just
He knows. He knows.
I love Edgar Wright.
He knows.
I want to kidnap him, wear skin, put it on, and they'll direct like him.
I mean, I think when it
I
comes,
just think he's really smart.
when it comes,
I want his brain.
when it comes to Ant-Man, the thing that I have a problem understanding is why this company thought that they needed Ant-Man in their cinematic universe. Like they can't. Like he could have been in the universe, I guess, but like, did they really need to create such a divide between them and a very talented director where they couldn't give him this one movie of this character that doesn't really revolve that much even around the movies. Go see the other Marvel movies. Ant-Man, even though he's in them, he's not like anyone's
basically
favorite
saying, like,
character.
I mean, he's only just said it vaguely why. It's like creative differences. It's sure everyone seems to think it's like they wanted to fit it more into the Marvel Cinematic Universe and he probably didn't want to as much.
That's
I
definitely
think probably that, and probably
has
that they
to
were
be,
reining in some of his crazier ideas.
I mean, like,
sort of my hunch.
I like the scene, but I feel like the scene in Ant-Man where he lands in an Avengers compound and fights Falcon. Like,
Right.
as fun as that is, it's so not related to the story and that main character.
It was done well, but yeah,
I could see a director going like, "That's not what the story's about." He's not dealing.
Yeah, you
with...
see a movie like Baby Driver where like every moment
Yeah.
is something that is leading to something else. There's no time for like, we're going to take this little side adventure and then go back to the plot.
Yeah, I mean, I get it. I think there's another every frame of painting about it, where how Marvel, particularly all the big franchises are doing, like they are steering the directors and writers in such a path that they all kind of look like they're made by the same people. Like they're all
They have the same color palette, the same color grading.
same scores types.
It's like that is for a director like Edgar Wright that cares about every piece of the puzzle. Color is a huge tool.
Yeah.
And to be told, yep, everything's gonna be a little bit washed out is just like, all right, why don't you just like say there's no audio in the like there's no right channel. It's only left channel now. It's
Hold
like,
on, you're throwing some ideas out there, and Michael Bay's like, "What if though?"
So it's like I can understand being in that kind of environment where like he's been, from what I can tell just from watching the movies, he's given a lot of creative freedom. Like I would love to see what's left on the cutting room floor that like the studio's like, you cannot do that.
I wonder if
because the shit they let him do is pretty crazy.
Yeah.
Where with Edgar Wright stuff, are you? Do you think that there has been studio meddling in his films, or do you?
I think there's studio meddling in every studio film ever made.
Every movie I'm amazed gets made after just seeing like how many like executives can give notes and like
Right.
unless it's an independent, like I made this my own budget and I just shot it.
Well,
I'm amazed. Like anything coherent is done.
I ask that because there's not a moment in any of Edgar Wright's films where I feel like a room of old men in business suits were going, I think this would appeal more, actually.
Sure. I mean, I think it's more subtle stuff. Like we were talking like, oh, it makes sense in Baby Driver if Deborah had this kind of backstory. Like,
Yeah.
Sure.
that was probably cut for pacing. Like, I think it was probably things like that where like, oh, we need to get it under 2 hours or some shit like that.
I mean, we're also maybe forgetting, like, I'm looking up the numbers right now, just try to have those to justify my point. Like, Edgar Wright, we all love Edgar Wright. Nerds love Edgar Wright. Like,
Yes.
he's
Yes,
not
we
like
do.
a huge director. Like,
No.
Like, I was surprised when I read the box office returns for Baby Driver is like, whatever, 25, 30 million in the opening weekend. I'm like, that's not great.
Yeah, I think it's up to 50
And then
now.
I saw that it was like the best he's ever had. And I'd
Yeah.
forgotten that,
Really?
like,
Hot
Oh,
Fuzz
wow.
was like around 50 million.
but I don't think like it was a huge hit. And Scott
Yeah.
Pilgrim was like a great film, but like a flop. Like, it didn't
Scott Pilgrim did not do
It did better after.
Yeah, Shaun of the Dead was like a DVD hit kind of thing.
Shaun of the Dead, yeah, but that makes sense because that was kind of like his first big film where people were like, "Oh shit, like this movie's great," and I think that was a lot of word of mouth, especially for me.
He does the music thing in Shaun of the Dead,
Yeah,
which is great.
Yeah, he. I mean, it was just the big action scenes in Baby Driver are just such a fucking delight. How many things are synced up to the music? My favorite fucking scene. No, my favorite scene was the coffee scene. One of my favorite scenes. Every scene's my favorite scene. I fucking love Hocus Pocus by Focus. Do you know that?
Okay, yeah.
the-
But just this Disney movie Hocus Pocus. Like, I also love Hocus Pocus.
Right, which has great directing in it. It's the song with the yodeling and the whistling and all kinds of
yeah,
crazy
yeah.
shit in it. And there's a flute solo where it's like and he's just like jamming out on this flute, and it's synced up to Machine Gun Fire where it's like and you're just like and they're like whipping pie. They're I can't even talk. I'm
whipping
so
pie.
excited. It's gonna be a great cake. They're driving down the street and you're seeing like street lamps like go whizzing by, and that's synced up to the music too.
Yep.
So I'm like, that was probably CG. unless they're that insane to sync that up.
I think like stuff like that is definitely CG as like little
At
touch
least
ups.
slow
But,
down
it
or
just,
sped
but
up
you know
something,
he planned that.
Yes,
He's like, okay,
100%.
and there are going to be lamps outside of the window, but that's going to be in editing. Don't worry about that. That's me.
You know, when he's effectively made like a dozen music videos over the course of a movie.
Yeah.
And like, I'm sure anyone who's ever directed a music video has this very strict timeline of like, okay, this shot is this from like this second to this second. We're looking at this. Like,
I'm
the
sure
whole thing
everything's
is
boarded
planned
out. I'm sure.
It's boarded out. They probably did previs for fucking everything.
And just in case, by the way, just in case anyone's curious, for the record, to realize how not big of a director Edgar Wright is.
Yes.
Baby Driver, 44 million right now. World's End made 26 million total. Not great. Adventures of Tintin, which he has a story credit on, 77 million. That's a weird movie. Scott Pilgrim, 30,
That was the Spielberg Tintin?
That's the one where like it's like Spielberg and Stephen Moffat and Edgar Wright, and it's all CG.
No, I thought it was just Spielberg.
It's a crazy cast. Of,
I
like,
love that movie though.
Yeah,
That was a
it's-
fun. It was like if Indiana Jones was a kids movie.
yeah, I actually didn't mind it. Just such a weird fucking deal.
It was really weird, but I really enjoyed it.
Wasn't Andy Serkis in that?
Andy, I think
He's in everything.
I know Simon Pegg and Nick Frost like play the two inspectors or something.
Yeah,
Like,
that's right.
it's something like that.
Yeah, okay.
But Tintin 77, Scott Pilgrim's 31, Hot
Wow,
Fuzz.
what was the budget for Scott Pilgrim?
It's usually listed right here. I'd have to pull it up. I'm sure.
Oh, that's.
Well, give me 1 second.
I imagine that was like his biggest budget.
The budget for this one's reportedly 60 million, and you know you're supposed to always like double the budget or whatever for
marketing.
But Hot Fuzz only made 23 million. Shaun of the Dead only made 13 million. So like I think he probably got away with not a ton of studio executive notes if he's like the little guy.
So I almost wonder if he's getting all of these top billing actors to be like, yeah, I'll work for next to nothing just to be a part of this.
I could totally buy, not at all to take a giant studio side. I could totally buy that even if Marvel, for example, had like big notes on Ant-Man, it would have been the first time he's ever dealt with it.
Oh yeah.
But I mean, I think I know not everyone's not huge. I'm not going to be super brave to stand up for Avengers 2. Avengers 2 has a lot of problems, but remember Joss Whedon talked about like it was a nightmare to get it made when you realize that there's like Disney executives, there's Marvel executives,
It was a nightmare to watch and certain.
yeah, like I was
But you also have actors who like I'm sure you can't be like, oh, let's do some reshoots. It's like no, they're already onto
gone.
like 1,000 different
in
projects.
a weird way, I was impressed by that movie because I was like, it's amazing that you hit all these checkpoints you had to hit.
Like, this
in
should
some
not
way.
exist.
You had to introduce like Wanda and Pietro and also Ultron and also like
Also,
all
they
these
locked down
things.
this release date 5 years ago.
Yeah, I was almost like impressed that you guys pulled it off, but I'm sure that kind of thing, it made Whedon stop doing the biggest movie he's ever done. Right? He stepped down, right?
Yeah.
So I could see why Edgar Wright would be like, I'm not dealing with this. I'm not gonna
Yeah,
do
I think it's also easy to be like, oh man, the small guy making his weird movie. Why wouldn't Disney be a fan of that? It's like, well, yeah, that makes sense. Like
Yeah.
it's and Marvel clearly, despite my frustrations, they keep printing money, so they know what they're doing. It's just fun to think what Ant-Man could have been.
There's another universe.
better if
yeah.
If it was Edgar Wright. Yeah, if Iron Man flopped and then Ant-Man was the start of the new MCU.
That'd be such a weird thing. Yeah, we forget that Iron Man like wasn't a big deal.
Yeah, it was,
he was like a
it was just
Marvel
another
character,
Superman.
but-
It was like we already had like 500 Batman movies and Spider-Man movies. So it's
Oh,
just
we got
like-
another one now, boys.
Yeah, we do.
I'm actually hopeful for that one. God, I hope that one's good.
I'm gonna go see it tomorrow.
Literally, all I know is, oh man, the end credits scene, which I'm like, I don't want to sit through 2
You
hours
and I
of
talked
shit
about this before.
for an end credits scene if no one's talking about the movie.
God, that movie was horrible, but it's worth it for the end
It's like,
credit
that
sequence.
makes me. That's everything I hate about modern movies.
I know.
It's just like. I don't want to sit through credits to be rewarded. I want to sit through credits because I love the movie and I want to see those names.
I
and
don't,
be
I
like,
don't know.
Yes.
What's been the worst, best after post credits like universe scene, like the ones of recent memory?
Howard the Duck?
Howard the Duck. At least that was a joke. Right?
Yeah, but it was enough to be like, the fuck is this?
I give
Guardians
that
of the
one
Galaxy.
credit because it wasn't trying to just kind of like, look what's going to happen in
Yeah, yeah.
5
Right.
movies.
It was just like, look what
Yeah.
we have the rights to.
I think-
which is just the weirdest thing.
I just thought I don't know. It always rubs me the wrong way when I see the Thanos one. 'Cause it's
which
just
one?
The worst one
the
was
first
like,
one. The first.
Which movie
The,
was
court, the
was
court
that?
death one at the end of Avengers.
Is that when he's just sitting on his space rock and
Yeah.
he's like, I'm evil?
No, he looks and he smiles and it's like, Josh Brolin is Thanos. Look at that.
that
And
one-
it's like, we'll see him in
You know
about
the
12
problem with
Yeah.
that one. You know the problem with that scene, by the way, is that Whedon was way too clever for that one, and that like he thought everyone was gonna love the line. I'm sorry, I'm being super nerd about it.
Oh, go fine.
Like the
We
line,
haven't been for the last hour.
No, but his servants like they say that these protectors called the Avengers, and that to fight them is to court death. And Thanos like does a knowing smile. Everyone's like, what does that mean? Because like in the comic books, he wants to marry death.
Yep.
Right.
So I'm sure Whedon is like, that's gonna be like. From the 3-point line, I just sunk it. Kobe does something like whatever, and it didn't pay off at all.
But a lot of the big
Are they not doing death in
there's
the Marvel
there's
movies?
no way they can have Avengers 3 be I'm Thanos and here's my skeleton bride that I want to impress. And
I mean, they've gotten away with some weird shit in Guardians.
they're getting weirder, especially with Ragnarok. They're
I'm so excited for Ragnarok.
Yeah.
but it's that for me.
The weirder they get, the more I'm into it.
I don't know if I sound like an
Civil War, I
asshole.
don't give a shit.
I don't know if I sound like an asshole, but just it feels very corporate weirdness, like haha, goofy. This
It's weird, but only so weird. Like we have strict parameters for what weird can be.
the
like
Guardians
Marvel-
2 is them stepping it out.
Marvel is like the hot topic of movies right now.
Well,
me.
I agree with you on one debate. Here's to his credit, for example, right? Like Guardians 2, it's pretty formulaic.
What movies do you think are like legitimately good films though in the Marvel universe?
The Marvel Universe, Iron Man 1,
Yes.
Captain America 2, Winter Soldier is pretty damn good.
It's yes.
I think Guardians 1 and 2 have their pretty strong merits.
I think there's 3, and like I'm gonna end it at the Guardians one.
Yeah.
I don't think Guardians 2 is like this big like
2 actually surprisingly hit better for me, but I was more just like, wow, you guys did Ego the Living Planet as a metaphor for a deadbeat dad.
Yeah.
I think Doctor Strange is one of the stronger ones.
Doctor Strange follows through for it. Yeah.
Yeah.
They're always like at least average, right? There's like even
That's my problem.
serviceable.
That's my. I guess that's my problem because every time now when I go into a Marvel movie, it's like they might as well give out like a pamphlet that's like, this is what to expect.
Right.
Remember,
Yeah.
this character arc is like I don't know.
Like it's just like a little bubble with the character's head. It's like this is Peter Quill.
They need
Like,
to pop up
here's
video.
his.
Pop up video for it.
Yeah.
Yeah. I have. Maybe I'm just being too hopeful because I'm usually pretty cynical towards movies, but at least Guardians 2 tried some weird stuff. It's
I
still like
love
mainstream.
the opening credits.
Yes.
And for me, it was downhill after that.
Really? Yeah.
Yep.
I enjoyed Guardians 2 quite a lot. It's just sort of, I don't know, like it didn't really hit with me until like kind of near the end, and then like with I mean now we're talking about Guardians 2 spoilers.
Well, yeah.
Spoilers for Guardians 2.
We
man.
spoiled the whole thing for it.
ever.
Yeah, every
But
movie
the
ever.
point of bringing it up is at least like
there were some good character moments.
They do get weird, to at least family friendly weird. There is like a scene where Yondu murders 500 men with like an arrow. Like at least it's kind of weird.
But then there's a moment where it's like, oh, we got Sylvester Stallone for 10 minutes, and you're
Yeah.
like, but why?
because he's one of the original
It
Ravagers.
takes me
dude.
out
He's
of
one
the
the original.
movie.
He's one of the original Guardians. You don't know that's from
But
the 80s.
I'm not a
I know-
comic
I'm
book
joking,
guy.
Yeah.
I'm not a comic book guy, so none of those references land for me. And those, I think, are just nods to those hardcore fans.
Yeah.
For me, as like Joe Schmo going to the movies, going to see some things explode in space. I just get drawn out of it when I'm like, oh, here's another giant celebrity who just wants to get in on the.
If it's a checkpoint just for the fans, I agree. It definitely takes you out of it.
Sylvester Stallone being in Guardians 2 is not for the fans. That's for that's for Sylvester Stallone's kids. That's for his kids to be like, look, there's Dad in the maybe his grandkids.
I couldn't take my kids to go see Creed, but I'll take them to go see Guardians.
Right. It's like he did a good job with his 5 lines, but it's like, why is he in
But
this?
my hope,
the Marvel-
my hope, yeah.
Oh, sorry.
I just wanted to bring it up just to make that whole tangent make sense. My only hope would be that like the weird parts of Guardians 2 and the best part of Doctor Strange that Dan Harmon wrote of like,
Dormammu.
the Dormammu have come to bargain.
That's
that's
my
weird,
jam.
different stuff.
Yeah.
And I'm
It's not him
hoping-
punching a dude until he dies.
And my hope is that's building up towards like everything I've seen of Thor Ragnarok, which is the guy who did like What We Do in the Shadows, which is amazing.
I still haven't
Oh,
seen it.
oh yeah, you guys see What We Do in the
No,
Shadows.
everyone that every single person associated with that movie,
Like
is just like
him
my
getting
jam.
to do that movie is like, God, maybe he can actually like make it weird. Maybe he can like Beta Ray Bill's gonna show up. Who knows? Like get
I would
weird with
lose
it.
my shit.
Get weird.
End
with
of
it.
Ragnarok post credits.
Yeah, he just shows up.
Beta Ray Bill.
But that's the reason
face.
why I bring it. But I agree.
Yeah.
There is still like a Disney's like keeping it pretty safe. Like
It's just the way I can describe it for myself personally is that the Marvel movies within their movie collection have made me bored of action. I am like I am
saturated.
Yeah,
And
it's
especially
very,
because they come out
whenever,
so. There's like
there's a
3 Marvel
little-
movies
there's-
a year now.
in the
It's too many
second
of them.
movie, there's a giant like fucking continent being used as a comet.
Right.
I'm just like
the stakes.
okay.
Guardians came out a couple months ago. Spider-Man just came out. We got Thor in like a month.
Wait, Thor Ragnarok is in a month?
It's like insanely soon.
soon.
I assumed it was like November.
No,
Holy
it's
crap.
like in a month or two.
Jeff
I think.
Goldblum,
Please look
baby.
it up. But it's like even if I'm excited for any of those movies individually, it's just too much.
Yeah.
Like
And also
Star
there's
Wars,
5 Netflix
we got
shows.
a Star Wars every year, and that feels like too much to
Did
me.
I tell you that I did the math for like, well, we know Star Wars is going to be made forever. There's going to be a Star Wars movie at least every
They're
Christmas
going to
or something.
remake the original
They're going to
trilogy
some
with
point.
children.
But I did the math of like average life expectancy and like how many, it's like, I'll live for another like 40, 50 years. That means I get to see 40 or 50 more Star Wars movies before. Like I did that math and I got super depressed, like thinking like what will be.
On my deathbed, I'll get an early screener for Star Wars
Yeah,
episode
I'll do it.
50.
There'll be a Reddit 2 thread because the Reddit 2 will exist by that
just-
point. Like, get an early screener.
They're making
They'll bring Dig back.
to me, it's like, I guess in relation to that, they're making things less special. When you have so many
Sure.
Star Wars movies, not the movies in particular, but the characters. If you see the characters so much now, if you see lightsabers as much as you human possibly can and all this other stuff, if you see all these superheroes as much as possible, it's just, you're like, okay.
Right.
Okay.
And that would have
Got
been
it.
great if
I
they
understand.
It stops
Yeah.
becoming the hot new thing. It's more like, oh, here's this one.
Yep.
And you probably wouldn't have that. You'd still be a superhero fatigue. But if they had let Edgar Wright take Ant-Man and make it whatever it is,
It would have
and
a breath
would've-
of fresh air.
But it would have stood out in the same way that Guardians stood out or Deadpool stood out, where it's just like, oh, this
Yeah.
one is a little bit different within these greater parameters.
I think Guardians
Yeah.
stands out the most because at least it's written and directed by James Gunn, who's like done weird stuff.
Slither is like
Slither's
my
great,
favorite
yeah.
movie by James Gunn.
Slither's pretty great. Gross, but great. Like, but if they had done that, like I kind of hoping in a weird way that like Doctor Strange was going to go more like horror or something. I don't know, just
Right.
like they kind of did it. They kind of did trippy.
Well, the director you definitely
He was like a
would've
horror
thought.
director, I
Yeah.
think, right? So I thought they were gonna go more like I don't know, spooky, scary. And when they announced Inhumans, which isn't a movie anymore, I was like, they need to get like Guillermo del Toro and make him
Okay.
like a monster, make it like a monster
But see,
superhero.
the thing
film.
is, at this point, I don't want Guillermo del Toro to make his Marvel movie because everyone gets a turn doing their Marvel movie. I just want Guillermo to make some crazy Guillermo shit.
And he will.
And he will.
That's what he did with Hellboy.
Right,
Yeah.
exactly. And,
I
so-
really do like Hellboy.
Hellboy's great.
Yeah, Hellboy 2 is
They're doing another one. I think they're.
But
I
not-
don't.
but
Not,
not
with
with
Guillermo.
right
Guillermo.
as soon as he does at the Mountains of Madness, right?
He should have done Hobbit also. Like, man, his Hobbit would have been so
It
good.
would have been great.
Have you guys seen that video about Hobbit where like
Where
Peter
Peter
Jackson's
Jackson-
really sad?
Is that like akin to George Lucas, like watching Phantom Menace and going,
Really sad.
It kind of
Oh,
is.
well.
I did a complete 180 on Peter Jackson. I was like,
Did you
how,
really?
I was like, how dare Peter Jackson turn
you
this
feel for him.
I was like,
Yeah.
how dare he turn this like hour-long read into 3 epic movies?
It's-
and then you watch this documentary and you're like, oh, this poor man, he was doing the best he could.
It's not just documentary. It's
Every
like
card was played against him.
It's like a featurette on one of the DVDs for The Hobbit. Like I've only seen 2 movies.
Is
that
it?
ever
So
did
is it not his fault that they turned out this
It's
way?
like him. It's like him apologizing.
okay.
It's. I think it's still 100% his fault that he was like, hey, we had 2 movies planned, we're gonna do 3.
Oh,
but he was
boy.
literally.
I think that's New Line's fault or whatever. Whoever owns Warner. I mean, my home.
I don't know. But
Yeah.
basically, they had a timetable for those movies to be made.
There's always a goddamn
Guillermo del
timetable.
Guillermo was going to do it.
Because, I mean, money's not infinite, and movies are insanely expensive. Everything is planned out years in
Because
advance.
executive might get fired by then if they don't get it made, so he has to get it made, kind of thing.
So Guillermo had all this pre-production planned, all these sets and costumes, like tons of shit planned to do, and then he bailed. I don't know exactly what happened there.
I shouldn't speak on behalf of the mind
No.
of Guillermo.
the story that I've heard doesn't paint Guillermo in the best light, because it seems like he just sort of was like, not my problem, and just bailed.
Yeah.
And I'm sure there was some sort of personal dispute going on.
I mean, just throwing it out there, he might have also heard they want to do 3 movies. Like he might, it could have been that too. Like,
Right.
Yeah.
But the story. Go ahead.
Well, yeah. So then the story goes that like Guillermo was like, I'm out. So then they need a director to come in and just pick up the pieces and pick up where he left off. So Peter Jackson did not want to do those movies. Was sort of dragged back as like, you're the best person to do this because you're into Lord
I'm
of the
sure they
Rings.
threw a ton of money at him.
I'm sure they threw a ton of money at him.
Yeah.
Except he had a different vision for those movies and had no pre-production whatsoever.
But they also. So here's what
And
I
they
think.
had to throw away everything
This
Guillermo
is
had
what I
done.
think is the one mistake. I think he should have just been like the same way Peyton Reed for Ant-Man seemed to have to at least take some of the stuff that Edgar Wright had done. I think he needed to be like, you know what? These aren't my character designs. We're doing those character designs. Like he needed to just cut his losses and be like, we'll take whatever Guillermo did. I respect him as a look at me just saying what a director should have done, but but like just going with that because you see this documentary featurette that's like 10 minutes long, and it's like we had no time, and they show a guy from the Lord of the Rings who's the costume maker. It's like we had a year to make.
I'm sure
the
this is
orcs.
on YouTube. Is
Oh,
this
yeah.
something
Oh,
that
it's on YouTube, yeah.
I can watch this.
Yeah,
on
it's
YouTube.
like
The original Lord of the Rings trilogy, they did like a year and a half of pre-production.
We had all the suits and armors made ahead, and you see like
It's
pictures
almost
of,
like making a movie
dozens-
should take effort. Whoa!
You see a guy like next to like all these like orc.
Well, it's
masks,
also why so much of The
Uruk-hai,
Hobbit was CG, because they literally didn't have the time to make shit.
and they're like shooting it as they go.
And he shot down production one day to sit down and write some script shit because they didn't
yeah.
know the plot.
That sounds
and
like
he's
a
just sitting there in
nightmare.
the set by himself, like thinking about what the story is. And it's like, I just feel bad for this guy because it seems like he came in to pick up Guillermo's like broken Legos is sort of what it seems like. But he probably could have taken more of Guillermo's notes. He maybe could have lobbied New Line or whoever to get like a month more of pre-production.
Yeah, as a
Hindsight
choice,
being
you
what
could
it
have
is.
said like, "Hey, I'm not gonna." Again, this is it's
he
much
took-
different.
I don't know how
took the
movies
He took the
are
job. Theoretically, I mean, hindsight, maybe
Or
he would have said.
he might have had like a contract because it's like
Yeah.
if you do a movie over there, you're gonna do a movie for blah, blah,
And
blah,
a lot of
blah.
times they do it to get another thing made too, like to
It's like
tie it back
I
in.
scratch your back, you scratch my back.
I remember Edgar Wright, to tie it back into it, said he was doing Ant-Man originally at one point after it was starting to get bad because he knew he'd get to make Baby Driver. Like that was kind of a thing of like, I'll make Ant-Man, I care about it, but that'll be my big giant budgeted one.
Make the men at the top happy. And
Yeah,
then
and
give me
then
30
I'll-
million to do my weird thing.
Yeah, totally. Like
Yeah.
that kind of thing for it.
Which,
But-
I mean, to kind of cap off all of this, like, oh, these franchises and sequels and reboots and shit, it's just like Baby Driver is just a good little nugget of joy. And it's its own little thing. And it's not a new Driver universe. Maybe it is in the same universe as Drive with Ryan
Maybe,
Gosling.
yeah.
Maybe it is.
I wouldn't hate.
See, that's where the simplicity worked of the characters. Where like
in Drive or in Baby Driver?
in Drive, I thought
Yeah.
the characters worked a lot better.
You didn't
in
need
Drive,
to
of
know his
course.
life story. You're like, he
Yeah.
drives good.
Well, it's the metaphor
He's in
for
with some
like
bad guys.
It's every like old Western gunslinger. I don't need
Yes.
to know why the main gunslinger is good at shooting guns. I want
Right.
to know what he does with his.
He shows up in a town. You know he's been to other towns before. That
Yeah.
doesn't matter. What matters is
Totally.
what happens in this town.
what he does with the gun.
Exactly. What he does with the car.
Yeah.
But yeah,
Did
Baby
you mean to
Driver's.
say that so sensually.
If for some
Yeah, a
reason,
little bit. Yeah.
Okay.
if for some reason you listen,
As I'm looking at you.
if for some reason you listener listen to this entire thing without seeing Baby Driver and just got a bunch of shit spoiled for you about Guardians 2,
and a bunch of
Yeah.
other movies. What
Go
Transformers?
see Baby Driver.
I have not even
Go
scratched
see it.
Transformers 5's. It has so
please,
many, it has so
please.
many
I'm
ideas.
never gonna see that movie. I don't give
Can
a
I just
shit.
say like 3 more rapid fire ideas?
Yes.
Here's the Transformers section, boys and girls.
Shia LaBeouf is from a secret lineage of people that are protecting the Transformers secret called the Wiccans, but also he might be dead. He's not in the movie.
They mention him in the movie.
They show a photo of him, like on like Anthony Hopkins, like we're from a long line of protectors.
Is it a screen grab from his "He Will Not Divide Us"
I
live
wish
stream?
it's his image. I hate that I know it. It's his image from his eBay profile from the first one, like the joke of him having like selling the glasses on eBay.
Yeah.
that's retconned. Transformers have been on Earth since forever.
Dinosaurs, right?
Well, not the dinosaurs.
Beast
though.
Wars.
I would love that. I
If
would
they
love to
do a Beast Wars,
I would-
I have not seen a Transformers since the second one.
yeah.
I would be back in if they do Beast
my
Wars.
pitch is at some point I get to
that
write
shitty
Beast Wars.
CG TV show was my fucking
It was so
life.
good.
the first 5 movies didn't do it for me, but when beasts are involved.
Dude,
No,
fucking.
we won't get into-
If they made a Zoids movie, if they made a Zoids movie, I'd go see that. I'd go see that.
You'll see Zoids.
What if they do a what's the Bionicle?
No,
the
guys,
Lego.
this is
I like
we're comparing
Bionicles.
Bionicle to Beast Wars. Beast Wars, Dinobot dies to keep the human race going.
Right.
In Beast Wars, there's some maybe stuff. All right,
Sure.
All right,
The lore is extensive.
two more things, random things I'm gonna drop. The Autobots killed Bumblebee. Killed Hitler. You find out Bumblebee killed Hitler.
Did they actually show Hitler
They
being
show
killed?
a flashback to Hitler's like bunker being raided by.
Do you see
soldiers.
Hitler?
I don't
You
know
don't
if
see
you're-
Hitler.
I don't know if you're lying to me right
There's
now.
so many ideas in this movie.
I don't know if you're lying.
There's constantly.
Does it show Bumblebee like putting the gun back in Hitler's
I
hand?
wish. No, I'm gonna say you're right. Anthony Hopkins holds
What?
up a Transformers pocket watch. He's like, this little guy here is the one that killed Hitler directly. He's a tough little guy. And it's a little like stopwatch Transformer in a glass cage. Like,
Fuck.
thread. There's so many ideas.
Is Stanley Tucci in it?
Stanley Tucci is in it again.
Okay.
He's in 4 as a like Japanese businessman who's like making his own
Wait,
Transformers.
he's Japanese?
It's like a Japanese company or it's like a
Oh,
Chinese
okay.
company because they want to get China.
Like,
the
that would
China-
be bold.
They want to get the China.
After
well,
what were the two
Skids and Mudflap.
Skids and Mudflap
and 2.
Is Jesus in
after
it?
that shit?
Jesus theoretically probably. Harriet Tubman knew about the Transformers, I guess. Like,
What?
There's like
No.
so many.
Stop!
Anthony Hopkins does this long line of like he does that thing that Assassin's
Now you're making
Creed.
me want to see this movie.
I had a great time. It just,
Wait, she had to help the robots escape
well, they do that
on.
thing Assassin's Creed did of like all these famous people across time have been connected to this, like Leonardo da
Sure.
Vinci, Harriet Tubman.
They're all robots.
They're
all Transformers.
Famous director Michael Bay.
Michael Bay. Also, he's really good. I love his stuff. Have you seen Pain and Gain? It's on DVD right now. But
That's a movie I don't mind watching. It's so loud.
Michael Bay knows how to shoot stuff. What's another great reveal? So Stanley Tucci, I would say this.
Yeah.
He's in 4 as a
Okay.
businessman that's running, I think it's a Chinese company because they wanted him to do a story for the Chinese movie markets.
Every
that are
movie
making their
does.
own Transformers. I think he just dies in that movie. He just goes away. He also plays Merlin in this one.
Like the wizard?
The Wizard Merlin. The movie starts with medieval.
There's not a wizard
Chad!
in this.
No,
There's not a wizard. No, screw
It
that.
cuts,
You're
back, it
fucking
cuts
with
to
us at this point.
medieval age, the Dark Ages. It just says the Dark Ages. Men are fighting, and they're like, where the Knights of the Round Table are like, will that damn wizard show up?
No!
And it cuts to Stanley Tucci playing Merlin.
Oh my
just
God.
just drinking, and he goes and talks to an ancient Autobot that's in a cave. Is like, help us fight this thing. And then they give Stanley Tucci Merlin a staff that magically shrinks down to his size. It's like, now you control the Transformer dragon, and then a Transformer dragon,
Bullshit!
a Transformer 3-headed dragon.
There
comes
are
and
no
fights the
wizards in
war.
Transformers.
And-
There's no
and
wizard in
That's the start of the movie. I'll bet you $20.
If I saw a poster for
price of a movie
Transformers 5, if I saw a poster for Transformers 5 that literally was just a black frame with
Yes.
white text that said Stanley Tucci plays Merlin the Wizard,
Yes.
I would buy a ticket.
I had a great
That would
time.
be good marketing. That would be
stop-
wonderful marketing.
I would drop all of my shopping in the middle of the mall and
Yeah.
just go right into that theater.
I have a theory that because all those movies have writers' rooms. We should wrap up this podcast. I'm sorry.
no,
We should also wrap up our opinions on the actual movie that we said we discuss.
I
Baby
do-
Driver and every
Baby
movie.
Driver done by Michael Bay. I just have this theory that like all those big movies have writers' rooms that just kind of like all work on stuff.
Yeah.
I think my theory is that like every writer comes in because they have like legit writers. I think like Robert Kirkman, who did, like I think like real writers come in and work on it.
He's
He's hit or miss, but like but the people who know story structure,
Right.
or at least
Okay.
general characters. Or
Characters, yes, Robert
I think
Kirkman
they come
does.
in, right, and I think they all have an idea. I think there's like, because there's a Metal Gear Solid like type thing in Transformers 5. There's like Chicago's been bombed out from the 3rd movie, so there's like kids just living in a war zone, and
Like
Metal
Lord
Gear
of the
Solid.
Flies?
But they all
and
have
Metal
good
Gear-
makeup on,
They all have
especially
great
the
makeup
young
on,
ones.
and there's a Metal Gear Solid Rex things just walking around patrolling everything. Yeah, someone
like
showed
Guns
him,
of the Patriots?
Yeah,
shit?
Guns of the Patriots stuff. There's so many ideas, but I think each writer comes in and goes like, all right, let's do Chicago War Zone, 4 kids, like Stranger Things. We'll do like Stranger Things. And they're like, I love it. We're putting that in the movie. And another kid's like, what if though, like Merlin? He's like, I love it. We'll put that in. Like, there's just all
like,
these.
The only
things.
thing that would make it better is he wearing a wizard cloak and hat with stars on it?
He's wearing a robe with a giant beard.
Have you seen the Key and Peele
close enough.
sketch about Gremlins,
Gremlins
2?
2. It's like Gremlins 2.
I was like, this is exactly
What
like,
about like a lightning gremlin? Something just like gremlins
in the movie.
just zipping all over the place. It's in the movie. Yeah. I think that's how these movies are made.
There's no wrong answers.
There's no wrong answers.
God damn it. Okay, I guess I'm seeing Transformers 5 next.
It's a terrible movie.
I still
had a
refuse.
great time.
I can't do that. Unless my boy Anthony Hopkins is super good.
He goes crazy. He's like flicking people off and like telling people.
about-
There's a steampunk cog butler named Cogman that is a transformer that never transforms.
Sure, it's just what they're called.
Oh wait, what is he though?
He's like a servant
suggestion.
transformer.
What does he?
Well,
But he doesn't. Okay, so he doesn't transform.
he's
into
just a man
something-
robot, but he's all steampunk and he's just.
Is he
caught-
small and tiny?
No, he's like a human size, and he's just spouting like memes and like random lines. Like at one point, they get in a submarine, and Cogman's like, "What state? What happens in the submarine?
He
Stays
can only
in the submarine."
he can only speak in SpongeBob quotes.
It's weird. Yeah.
I think we need to stop.
So we're all gonna go to Transformers 5 after
yeah,
this, right?
we're gonna in 10 minutes we're gonna do a Transformers 5 episode.
Yeah.
But
So sorry to derail it on that.
so
No.
do we want to just give our final say-sos about Baby Driver?
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Let's
I'm not going to start this one. Barry, Chad,
Everyone,
one of you
your
started.
deepest, darkest fears. You go first. That's Ryan for you.
I'm just setting it up.
What, you want me to
boys.
give it like a score out of 10?
No, just no. Just
Like,
like
I don't want to do that.
just say like I guess overall like wrap up your ideas. What you liked, what you didn't like, and would you recommend it?
Yeah.
Type of
I
thing.
liked the good stuff, and I didn't like the stuff that.
Good job, Barry. Chad.
I recommend it if you like movies.
I'd like it. I would if I was
To all you movie lovers out there.
I loved it. I would say if I was going to show someone an Edgar Wright movie, I wouldn't show them this one first.
Yeah.
Unless they're a person that has really like taste that's hard to like.
They love funk.
Well, let's
and
say
they
funk.
love the movie Bullet.
Yeah, and if they liked like mainstream films, I would almost maybe show them this one first. In a way, that sounds like an insulting thing to Baby Driver, just because it's so straightforward. I'd be like, let's watch this one, and now let's watch Scott Pilgrim.
From like a bird's eye view, it's the least crazy Edgar Wright.
It's the most palpable or something.
Yeah.
In a way.
Because the craziest thing in that movie is kind of within the bounds of reality. It's not literally zombies or androids or shit like that.
But I highly recommend it. It's nice to see a film in theaters that has a complete story structure. Boy, oh boy, is that nice.
And no after credits shit.
Yeah, there's no after credits.
It's just a movie.
My final thought, I wouldn't hate, though, if it showed him pulling up next to Dominic Toretto in a car and it's like, I heard you need a new white guy. and then just he's in Fast 9.
It's been a long day.
I cried during that.
You're like, stop right there.
I cried during that scene in Fast 5.
He's my friend.
I would love for Baby Driver to make $1 billion bajillion in like China and stuff. But the problem is I feel like the studios would get the wrong lesson out of it. They'd be like, we need to bring back heist movies. Everyone do heist movies now. It's like, no, it's just that it's a smart film.
They're making more Oceans movies, aren't they?
Yeah, it's like
Thank God for that.
There's like
It's a female.
How dare we
Oceans,
try to
yeah.
make a new heist story? We gotta bank on that name.
God forbid.
That's the thing that bugs me. It's like,
It's all about the name. It's all about the name.
It's literally the name. It's like they could just rebrand as a new name, be free of the shackles of having to tie it into some old shit by bringing back the old actors.
Barry.
To have a cameo.
Barry.
Thoughts.
It's some
Barry.
bullshit.
Barry.
Just tell a new story.
Barry,
It's not hard.
How are they going to make any money if they
Movies
don't
have-
steal brands, Barry?
TV tropes. Swap out the names. You're done. You've told a new story.
But you
Wait,
get
hold on. That's called plagiarism. Hold on. Don't do that.
You get a little boy that goes, I love Transformers toys. You get a grown man that goes, my son loves
Hold on.
Transformers.
Baby Driver gets in a Camaro and it
Yes.
starts to drive itself, and it's like it's Bumblebee.
And it's also Kit.
I thought
from
you-
Nitro.
I thought you were about
Yep. There you go. It also talks. David Hasselhoff has a
It's
cameo.
also Herbie the Love Bug. It's every car that's ever been in the movies.
People are going to be thinking we're having a stroke all at the same time.
We basically
Wacky
are.
races with all the live action cars.
Yes.
Kit, Herbie the Love Bug, Baby and Baby Driver. He's just the human
With
one.
like
in it.
really realistic CG for all the crazy cars.
Bumblebee. What else? Self-driving cars. The car from Flubber.
Would it have
that.
been too much for them to add a little, like, maybe the last word in the movie could have been like, kerchow?
What that did?
I feel like we have to end the podcast.
Just really in it?
Did you want to sum up your feelings of Baby Driver? Or is that what you're...
As of...
Could have used more ka-chow.
Is that a Cars reference, by the way?
That is a Cars
Okay, I just want
reference.
to make sure.
He realizes his car was Lightning McQueen the entire
Yeah.
time.
Lightning McQueen's also in it. Oh, I love
And
Wacky
then
races.
He's in the first scene.
It's like a weird Steve McQueen, Lightning McQueen reference. Because they're also referencing Bullet.
We're joking, but I'm so on board this.
It's like, we were in Atlanta, but we were also in San Francisco the whole time. We were just in a really big dome that looks like Atlanta. Sorry, I'm losing my mind.
Stephen King's The Dome? What?
Yeah.
Let's
Stephen King's
Biosphere.
let's stop.
Christine could be
Stop. We gotta stop. We gotta
Sphere.
stop.
No, Stephen King's Christine could be
Samuel
in the Wacky
Jackson.
Races.
Yeah.
Overall,
Thank you.
I think Baby Driver. It go. There's Hot Fuzz, Shaun of the Dead. Then you got Scott Pilgrim, and then Baby Driver for me kind of ties with The World's End with my enjoyment.
At the
of
bottom of the list. Interesting.
But that doesn't mean that it's a bad movie. Just
No,
because
no.
it's my least favorite of his.
The Edgar Wright bar is a very high bar.
I'm gonna
Yeah.
go back to rewatch this one less, but people should still see it.
Yeah.
For me, it's like number 3.
Number 3.
Yeah, I think I would go Hot Fuzz, Shaun of the Dead, Baby Driver, Scott Pilgrim, World's End.
I'm kind of stuck with the 3 movies at the
all
end with
really-
Scott
but it's like
Pilgrim,
those
The
are all
World's
really
End.
good.
So it's
It's
I
not
need
we're
to see
recommending
World's End
Hot
again.
Fuzz. We're recommending Hot Fuzz if you haven't seen any of them, probably.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hot Fuzz or Baby Driver are good
can't go
first time
wrong with
views
any of
for
those.
any of.
That's it.
I think
for his
Scott
movies.
Pilgrim might be the least palatable.
Oh, for sure. I know people who can't stand it.
Yeah, I totally understand that. I really enjoyed it.
I laughed my ass off because I didn't know it was when I first saw it. I didn't know it was Edgar Wright directing
really?
it.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden I'm like, something's up with this film. And then
This is fun.
Then I checked the back of the box. I'm like, that's why.
Oh, he makes it in theaters.
I think that one, to his credit, he makes
Yeah.
Scott Pilgrim a better character than the books do, on popular opinion. I think actually like Scott in Edgar Wright's version better.
I actually like the comic book version more
Yeah.
because
Aren't they just dicks in general,
He's
though?
an
They're all kind of
asshole.
dicks. They're all kind of.
He's an asshole for all of the books, and then in the last one, he's like, "Oh shit, I'm an asshole."
True.
And I think that's much more interesting than the movie version, which is just sort of like, "I gotta believe in myself." and then he gets that purple sword,
Yeah,
and
he
you're
gets the
like,
purple
all
sword.
right. But like in the
Sorry, I didn't mean to bring this up. By the way,
in the graphic novel, is it a graphic novel? It's a comic book. I don't
yeah,
know.
whatever.
I don't know what those things are.
It's
called.
a book with pictures.
It's in the picture book. They go through like all these flashbacks of earlier stuff in the like his backstory. And,
Oh,
like,
yeah.
all of them are different than he remembered them, and it's really well done. I enjoyed it.
That's true.
But I also like that he's playing Monster Hunter in the comic. Yeah, he's like depressed and he's playing Monster Hunter on a PSP, and I'm like,
That hit you.
yeah, got me good.
So go see Hot Fuzz and Baby Driver.
And
Go see-
Transformers 5.
Go see-
5.
and Gremlins 2.
Go see all of Edgar Wright's catalog.
Yeah, literally can't. I need to see this. This is the end, or not this. Fuck.
Yeah,
World's
at
End.
It's better upon rewatch.
Pirates of the Caribbean at World's End.
God damn it.
Is that what we're talking about now?
Don't get me started on Pirates of
No,
the Caribbean.
We're done. We're done. Thank you for listening.
Abort!
Real quick, where can people find you guys?
Oh yeah.
Oh.
Ryan.
People can find me over at Super Mega. It's a channel on YouTube, or you can find me at my tags on everything like Instagram or Twitter, Eli Rye McGee. So that'll be in the description, I'm sure. Chet.
Oh wow. Oh, I felt
Sound
that.
like he called you. Sound like he called you Chet there.
I'm on all those social medias as at Quantum Theory. That's QUANDTUM Theory. It's a terrible pun name that only I enjoy with my last name. And I also do podcasts. I do Goosebuds. If you guys ever want to listen to that, we
What you guys talk about?
we read old Goosebump books and then talk about them.
That's a
Okay.
good
you
idea.
guys should be on sometime.
Dude, I'd be happy to.
It's very fun. You search Goosebuds, you'll find it.
Okay.
We'll have you on.
Okay, sounds
do
good.
you guys ever talk about the TV show?
Sometimes we watch the TV show.
We have to end
That
this.
is-
We
I
gotta.
know.
I know.
This is
You have to-
ended by
you have to listen to
now.
the
Okay.
podcast to find out.
Thanks.
Thanks for having me on. Barry at Residue.
Residue, Twitter. Bye.
Bye.
Don't follow Barry.
Please do.
That's a mean thing to say, Ryan. Like people are gonna actively not follow you because I said that.
Ryan said not
Ryan said not to. I guess I gotta say no.
guy.
I'm doing it right now. Like I don't know why.